Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of The Filter. We try and take the best bits from the world of digital marketing and SEO and some other places and bring them to you. Now, before you carry on watching this or listening to it, if you're on the podcast, you need to know that the links for these articles aren't in either the podcast show notes or in the YouTube description. To get the links, you need to subscribe to The Filter email, which you can do at yeseo.io/thefilter. Right, on with the show. The first thing we selected this week is an article that's brought to my attention by a good friend of mine, and it's about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, well, Douglas Adams really, and AI. It was written by James Kindred, which is a name you may know if you've experienced, if you've watched any of our videos or read the blog or listened to the podcast or any of it. James is a frequent flyer, a frequent collaborator with us. But this article is really interesting. It talks about the different ages of technology. Now, Douglas Adams, as we know, was very much into technology. But the quote in this predates what you might now think of as AI. So very good article, and I very much recommend reading that one. And I've lost my mouse cursor, so I'm cheating. I've got the email up on the screen, but don't let that spoil the magic. You should never break fourth wall. Oh dear. Right, next article is about minimizing distractions in the browser. How often have you been in a meeting in the last few weeks or few years or possibly days and someone has said, right, hang on, I've got too many browser tabs open? Yeah, you don't really need to do that. This article's got some useful tips about avoiding distractions. Incidentally, this comes from a piece of software called Shift, which if you're watching on the YouTube, we do have the link for Shift in the show note, in the video description. Used it for a long time, not using it at the moment, but it's a neat bit of kit. Kind of rolls everything you do online into one browser window so you can easily mute it if you need some peace and quiet. Although this article doesn't sell that, really, it's just a byproduct of what they do. Next one, I have put in an article about Facebook and privacy, which I did kind of think twice about, but it's an interesting thing that Facebook are doing. They're almost trying to sell a negative here. After all the accusations about privacy and the lack of it, they're now willing to charge you $10 a month for privacy. The article is actually more about advertising, really, but I think it's a bit of a warning. I'm a bit concerned about what Facebook are trying to do with this. But anyway, read the article. I present it without prejudice, apart from all that frowning I just did. Book of the week this week is Psycho-Cybernetics. I've chosen another book that has a slightly strange title that probably hasn't aged very well. But I really like this book. I read it the first time years ago, and I've read it again since. It's written by a plastic surgeon in 1960 who noticed that some of the people who came to him asking for operations didn't really need the facial changes that they were requesting. They needed to think a little bit differently. But if I was to summarise this book very quickly, I would say it's an early discussion on the fact your brain's a computer. So the more things you feed into it, your subconscious can then churn away and find solutions. It's nowhere near as woo-woo as it sounds. It's quite, the style's quite straightforward when you read it. Very good though. I really like this book. Right, I'm actually going to do a little bit of self-promotion, but hopefully it's something that might be useful to you. James Kindred and I, there's that name again, James Kindred and I are hosting an AMA. If you don't know what that is, it's an Ask Me Anything. Although I suppose it should be a US Ask Us Anything. And we're hosting it this Wednesday. So if you're reading this email as soon as it's been sent, we're hosting it tomorrow at noon on... My words fail me for a moment. LinkedIn Audio. James and I had an experiment with it, and there's a write-up with that on the SEO blog, and, well, we had fun, and some people turned up. So we're going to do it again. We're going to do it for a little bit longer this time. We're going to see if we can do half an hour. If you've not used LinkedIn Audio, it is super, super simple. Click the link in the email, and you don't have to register or anything, but you just turn up when it's starting. I have included some calendar links in there, so if you do want to have a reminder in your email and on your calendar, then just click one of those. It's for Yahoo, Google, and Hotmail. Right, yesterday we published another episode of the SEO Untitled SEO podcast, and I had the absolute pleasure of talking to Martin Wiskin, he's actually, when I say, he's an old friend of mine, this guy's band played at my wedding reception, and I've been married a long time. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, if you want to see two people basically forgetting that they should be recording a podcast, it's very unfiltered, and hopefully you'll find it quite amusing, but also obviously with business things in it as well. And finally, meme of the week. I'm just going to chuck this one out there. I wrote this one. I think it's funny. But as to what the exact meaning of it is, I'm going to leave that to you. If you've been in SEO for a long time, you might be slapping your thigh and celebrating how witty I am, or you might just be thinking, yeah. So there you go. That is wrapping up the filter for this week. Thank you very much for watching. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast, please subscribe and rate and review. And if you're watching this video after clicking it in the email, then, thank you for subscribing. As ever, if you want more, go to yeseo.io/subscribe. Thank you for being a part of this. And let me know what you think. There's an extra little link that says Start Survey in the email this week. I'm having a play with MailChimp surveys. Have a click on it. Let me know what you think.